Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
You know the saying, no news is good news at this portion, right? From the time you leave OTAs to the time you start training camp, no news is good news. That is the steadfast and always true rule of this portion, right? The less you have to cover as far as news goes, the better with your football team. Unfortunately, though, we have news to talk about. And the news we have to talk about is Quinn Sean Junkkins being arrested over the weekend on a battery and domestic violence charge. He was arrested. He spent a night in jail, which is normal if you get arrested over the weekend, from what I understand. I've never been arrested, but from what I understand, judges don't work on the weekend. So if you need to see a judge to post bail, you get arrested, and it's after the courts close on Friday, then you're probably going to be waiting until Monday or something like that. If you have more experience with the court systems and want to clarify what I'm saying, feel free to. That ain't my world. So from what I understand, that is the case, and that's why he's been in jail over the weekend. And this has effects on the Cleveland Browns. Now there's a larger trend to talk about with the Cleveland Browns. There's a lot of different angles to hit this with. I'm going to try to hit this all fairly. First thing to understand with this Quinn Sean Junkkins domestic violence situation, as far as legal repercussions go, we don't know what this case is going to be, right? I remember when last year when Mike Hall got arrested, it sounded horrific when you first heard the headline, and a lot of people had horrific, it sounded terrible, right? You heard that Mike Hall got arrested after a fight with his fiance on domestic violence charges. And you heard a gun was involved in the situation, and that sounds horrific. Ultimately, Mike Hall ended up pleading no contest to a reduced domestic violence charge. So if we're talking about the legal ramifications of this, right, and I think it's important to make a distinct difference when talking about it between the legal consequences that Mike Hall will face and the NFL consequences he might face, because those two things are not going to be prosecuted in a similar manner at all. Mike Hall legally, not Mike Hall, but Quinn Sean Junkkins legally will figure out what that situation is going to be. What more information is out there, if this is worse than we think, if this is better than we think it is right now, who knows? But it's not a good situation. The man is in jail over the weekend on domestic violence charges. Not good, right? I think that's pretty objective, right? No matter how you feel or what you're bringing into this, not good that Quinshon's in this situation, especially given that the Browns are going to be relying on him a ton, and especially given that the Browns have pretty bad history with this sort of thing. We had whatever was going on with Devin Bush that still has not been resolved. I believe those were also domestic violence charges. We just talked about the Mike Hall situation from last year. And if we want to open this up to a broader scope, when it comes to crimes against women, we know that the Browns right now roster one of the most, egregious and well-known alleged abuser of women in the NFL right now, Deshaun Watson. So that all is looming over the Cleveland Browns situation. I don't know if there's more guys I should include on that list. I'm just naming the guys off the top of my head. If I forgot somebody who has a situation, it's not because I'm trying to kick it under the rug. I'm just naming the stuff that I could think of off the top of my head, right? And that is a problem, right, that the Browns have. Now, it's not just the Cleveland Browns, right? I think we tend to do this whenever a team has an issue pop up that is morally disgusting. We tend to go, oh man, look at that team. They're uniquely bad. And that's what people love to do. But it's important to note You look at any team's 53 roster, it's not going to be rare that you find somebody with a DV charge on that 53-man roster, right? You could go through every team and find some cases that'll make you pretty uncomfortable that pop up in people's history. Now, all that being said, right, Mike Hall, to his credit, did accept the consequences of whatever went down between him and his fiance. It's their business at this point. And I don't know if they're still together, but that's none of my business. And he went through the required counseling, and he had an interview where he talked about how he feels like the counseling actually was like really helpful for him, right? So the quote here is, "It's just an unfortunate event, but just controlling what I can control as a man and as a person. Just got to move forward and continue going to counseling and all of that. It's been a real help. No dislike or anything, no love lost with the team. So it just felt like I said before, glad to be back in before the weekend." And other things, right? And that's good to know, right? That he's doing the counseling, he's taking it seriously, and whatever he feels like he can control to avoid that situation happening again, it seems like he's addressing that. And I think that's a good thing, because that's going to mean less people are going to be abused in the long run, right? The same thing goes with Quinshon. I don't know what went down here. We don't have any information on it, right? Like, there's not pictures. Nobody has made a public accusation that we can have access to, and we're not entitled to any of that stuff, right? And I'm going to make that point clear. I'm not going to sit here and demand that somebody post pictures to prove that. So we'll see what happens with this if more information comes out, and all of that with this whole Quinshon situation. The other part to talk about is, how is this going to affect the Cleveland Browns' plans on the football field, which I have to talk about because this is a Cleveland Browns football channel. Like, this is a channel that covers the Cleveland Browns, right? So with Quinshon being arrested under something like this, it's important to note, right? This is the distinction I made at the beginning. What happens legally does not really affect what the NFL is going to do. The NFL is going to do their own investigation, and it's important to note that the NFL is not and has never pretended to act like they're trying to figure out if somebody is guilty or not, right? They're trying to find out more details about the case to determine whether, if these details were to come out and the NFL does not suspend this person because of this, would it be a bad look on them, right? It's a PR decision more than anything when the NFL does this. The reason I bring that up is it's important to understand that if we're talking about his probability to be suspended, and I don't know until more comes out, right? Like, if there are pictures or something that comes out that makes him look awful, then he's certainly going to get suspended. And hopefully for him, he avoids, if more details come out and Quinshon looks really, really bad in this, then there is a chance that this becomes more than your standard suspension. He gets put on the commissioner exempt list. The bigger of a PR problem this is going to be for the NFL, the larger the suspension is going to be, right? Like, that's usually how this thing works. It's not me being cynical. It's not being conspiratorial. That's just how the NFL works. The NFL is a business. They are going to be cynical about this because they don't really care about, and this is not a community organization, the NFL. This is a business that's trying to make money. They're going to make cynical, money-focused decisions here. That's just how that works. And the bigger of a problem this is PR-wise for the NFL, the more likely they are to have a more heavy or lengthier suspension here. Keep in mind, we still don't know what's going to go down with Devin Bush. He was arrested on similar charges of assault against a woman. I know Quinshon's is domestic violence. His was just regular old assault. I don't know if there is a distinction the NFL makes between the two there, but there is that. But we're still waiting to hear whatever is going to happen with Devin Bush. The way this usually works, and it's unfortunate that it works this cynically, right? I'm not endorsing how the NFL operates. I'm just explaining how the NFL operates. The way this usually works is the more attention they think a case is going to get, the more and more seriously they take suspending that player, right? If this is something that's going to be high profile, then all of a sudden you hear about them bringing in judges to act as a third party, and you get a whole mock trial and everything else like that. But if this is something that's going to affect a player at the bottom of a roster, they usually just fart out a memo and tell you what the suspension is, and that's really the last you hear of it. So I don't know where Quinshon sits in that spectrum, right? He is a second round pick, and he's a well-known player, but he's not like Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders, like a mainstream name or anything like that, right? He's really just known to college football fans, and not even all college football fans know him. So maybe this is something that flies under the NFL's radar. Maybe more details come out that make this a more high-profile situation. Maybe more details come out that make this less of a notable situation, right? Like that's a possibility as well. But that's going to determine how much he gets suspended. If this is a normal situation where the NFL feels like there is enough there that the accusations of domestic violence are credible, if he has to plead guilty to domestic violence charges in a plea bargain or something like that, or if he has to plead no contest, anything but being proven innocent, then he's probably going to get suspended. The range in which his suspension could go is probably going to be somewhere between 5 to 6 games. If he is no contest, if he has to plead no contest, or if he's guilty, or if the NFL finds that they have enough information to think that this would be a bad look, it's probably going to be about 5 or 6 games that he gets suspended, which is going to be significant for the Cleveland Browns because, Quinn Sean Junkkins is one of the rookies that they were really expecting a lot of right now, early in his career, right? We're talking about 200 carries for him. And, I've talked about the running back room and the issue that I feel like the running back room had looming, which is we're putting a lot on these rookies. These rookies, while they are good prospects, are rookies still. And rookies by nature are just very unreliable. And we're putting a lot of the work in the running back room on these rookies. And potentially we have one of the most important of those rookies being suspended for maybe 5 or 6 games, which is significant. Like you lose in a 5 or 6 game stretch, and that's it. The season's over, right? Like you start the season 1-5 for the first 6 games. It's gonna be tough to come back from that. So this is significant. What's going on with Quinshon, right? If he gets suspended or not, it's going to have a huge impact on the team. They do not have anybody to give those carries to right now. Like if Quinshon cannot be the feature back, who's going to be the feature back? Jerome Ford, we've seen that be an issue. Pierre Strong? That's not going to be a great run game with Pierre Strong. Dylan Sampson, I'm already concerned that he's at such a high workload for somebody who's a 4th round pick, not necessarily the build of a day one ready running back. I think eventually he'll be good, but there are concerns there with Dylan Sampson. And you're just going to plug him in and give him Quinshon's carries and think that's going to solve the problem? I mean, realistically, you need to bring in another running back. I was never opposed of bringing back Nick Chubb because of not this specific reason. Obviously, I'm not like Nostradamus. I didn't see this coming at all. Quinshon didn't have any off the field issues coming out of Ohio State. And to be fair to Andrew Berry, right, I did a lot of kind of shitting on him about the trend that has continued. And it was notable this year that the Browns are really focusing on trying to get people who were going to stay out of this kind of trouble. And it still follows them, right? And I don't know if this is an unfortunate situation where they crossed all their T's, dotted all their I's, and somebody just did something they expect. And that happens sometimes. Oftentimes people will surprise you, right? Nobody's immune to fucking up, making a bad decision here or there of any kind of nature. So that could be the case here with Q. And part of the reason that's the case is an unfortunate truth. this is a bigger problem than just the Cleveland Browns organization. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, anybody trying to play holier than now with their team, one quick Google search of your whole roster, you're going to find a case there that you're going to be pretty uncomfortable with, more than likely, on your football team. Like, that's just going to be there, right? Like, it's not just the Cleveland Browns who are dealing with players in this situation or have things like this pop up on them. It can feel like it's just us when you only follow the Browns, but this happens. This happens a lot. My whole point is it's much bigger than the Browns, and you can try to avoid it, but if the problem is bigger than what's in your control, it's going to pop up, right? And I think people need to keep that in mind too. It's easier to, point your finger wag, feel better than everybody, and, assert your moral superiority over everybody. But the truth is that this problem is bigger than one football team. This is not just an issue in the NFL. This is an issue in college football, amongst almost every college football team, right? Like, even the small ones. You could put your finger on a random FCS school. You might find some charges to shock you in that football roster. This is something I think football overall, all the institutions that support it, have to address at a much deeper level than just acting like it's individuals that are making this happening. And honestly, you can even say it's more of a societal thing than anything. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But either way, the Browns are in a pretty bad spot here at running back. They're moving most of their running game, or not most of the running game. They're moving most of their offense to be focused in the run game. And one of the key pieces that they were going to build this run game around, well, he might miss 6 games. He's now unreliable. Well, hell, what do you do, right? Now, maybe you could have kept Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb could be cooked, right? And doesn't change anything. But the situation that the Cleveland Browns are in right now, they got to find somebody to bring in at that running back position. Because if you're going to tell me for 6 weeks we're just going to roll the dice with Pierre Strong and extra Jerome Ford carries, I'm just going to assume you're not taking this season seriously at all. Like, I understand we're not going to win a Super Bowl this year, but you got to give me more than that if you've been talking to me about the focus being the run game, right? So something needs to be done here that's more significant by Andrew Berry and company to address this position, regardless of how they feel about that, what the NFL is going to do about the case, and not just bring somebody in, right? That's the football side of this, right? It's not fortunate on the football aspect of it. It's not fortunate in the off the field aspect of it. We will find out more information, hopefully, about this case with Quinn Sean Junkkins. And as that information goes out, I'll let you know if I think it makes it more or less likely that he gets suspended by the NFL. As of right now, I'm just going to say he's probably going to get suspended, just because most guys who get arrested for domestic violence usually get suspended, but that's just going off a very large, very broad trend, right? It's really not me looking at the details of this, because there are no details of this, and making a determination of what the league's going to do. I have no clue, but usually when somebody gets arrested on something like this, a suspension happens. And the Browns also have something happening with Devin Bush as well. And with Q, this is going to put him on a list of where the NFL is going to be real hawkish on him over the rest of his career. This is a bad way to start your career if this is what it has been reported to be. So, or at least accused of being by at least one party. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how the NFL handles this. We'll see what comes out. But that's the Quinn Sean Junkkins story. Man, this is disappointing. I mean, again, no news is good news at this time of the year. It's real unfortunate, right? We'll see what happens. Hopefully, whatever happens gets addressed properly, and Quinshon is able to stay out of this kind of headline for the rest of his career. And this is the only time we ever talk about it. But that's it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good rest of your night. Peace.